This is the Chi Codes Podcast with your host, Thomas Dockstader.
Mark, so glad to have you on. It was like 18 months ago that you had me on your podcast, and that kind of opened my eyes to the potential of being able to kind of uncover people's stories. Because for me, for the Chi Code, I'm trying to reach as many people as possible and just offer hope and resilience, and my story can reach certain people, but your story can reach people I can't reach.
Yeah.
So that's how I look at this. So stoked to have you on.
Yeah.
You are an entrepreneur. You have your own podcast, couple hundred episodes in, a dad, a husband, many things. But I think today, what I want to really talk about is I want to understand your story. Let's talk about where you grew up, what your childhood was like, maybe relationships with your parents, and let's kind of progress from there.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I'd love to. Thanks for having me on. It's always fun. We were talking off camera about how fun it is to be a guest versus the host. So sometimes being the host, you got to pay attention.
Yes, you do.
So I grew up in Highland, Utah.
Okay.
I went to Lone Peak High School. I went to Highland Elementary School for all my Highland Hawks, I think. A freaking lifetime ago. Yeah, I grew up, for people who listen to this, Highland, Utah was probably 95 to 97% LDS or Mormon, depending on how you understand that religion to be.
Yep. And
it was actually super safe. It was, I grew up in a very loving home. My parents, at the time, really got along and it was just, it's wonderful, actually, the way that I grew up. Great friends. Some of my friends from high school I'm still friends with. In fact, one of my closest friends, Joe Larson, we just went to a Used concert with him over the weekend. Which,
very cool.
And the guys from the Used, kind of funny. One or two of them were really good friends with some of our friends from high school, because our high school merged between Pleasant Grove and different places. And so nostalgia going back there. But I've been friends with Joe since 5th grade.
Cool.
And he's got a twin brother, Richard. Also, I'm close to Rich, but he lives. He's back in. I think he's back in Oklahoma now. So, they're all roofers. They're all over the place. So.
Okay.
But yeah, growing up,
siblings.
Yeah, I got 2 little brothers and 1 little sister.
You're the oldest.
I'm the oldest. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm the birthright child.
Interesting. Yeah. How was that? I'm curious. I was a middle child.
Yeah.
So how was it being the oldest? Do you feel like you got the brunt of, I don't know, the discipline?
No, my little brother Brett did a good job doing that.
He took away he was kind of a troublemaker, so to speak.
No, he wasn't so much of a troublemaker, more of he doesn't like to be told what to do, doesn't like authority kind of thing, right? So
defiant.
Yeah, a little defiant. But not you wouldn't make a movie about him or anything like that, right?
Sure.
It's more inside the family.
Yeah.
It's kind of funny you asked that question, because I have a daughter right now who's 15. She's my oldest, right? And I talk to her all the time about being the oldest child. There's massive benefits to it. There's massive downsides. Being the oldest, you're your parents' first shot at this, right? And that's just the truth, right? I tell my daughter all the time, I'm like, babe, I've never had a 15-year-old. We're doing this together. You know what I mean? Especially when she complains that, I'm a little bit easier on her siblings, and I've got 3 kids. And so, but this kind of is the way that it is. But the cool things about it is you get to drive early. You get a lot more responsibility heaped on you, but that also comes with a lot of freedom, right? Mm-hmm. And so, excuse me, I think my throat. I think the biggest thing with it is you feel a sense of responsibility for your siblings. Mm-hmm. Not in a you were bestowed this or it takes away from your parents, but just kind of you're the older brother, right? And a lot of people like me, I've never had an older sibling. I don't even know what it would be like, And I even take that role sometimes, right? Even in the We Are the They, the men's group that I was a part of, and they call me the big brother of the group.
Yeah,
and I take that on as absolute gratitude.
Isn't that incredible? How again, it wasn't. You just happened to be, right? But then to your point, you naturally just give off that energy, because it's kind of the role, quote unquote, that you've kind of had your whole life. And that's why I asked that question, because I feel like a lot of these kind of things that when we tell our story, we kind of gloss over a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
Because we just know it. It's what we know, right? Yeah. But then when we start to kind of dissect it, we start to realize how much of that stuff actually is so important, or is such a great shaper of who we are.
Yeah.
Right. So
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
that's cool that you recognize it with your daughter, right? Yeah. Like, cause you guys can relate from that perspective.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. I've even had friends, men and women, who are both oldest children, right? Or acted in the capacity as the oldest child. That's actually a really interesting one, where it's the second child, but the first one, they might get into drugs or something like that. And then the second one kind of takes that mantle on. And it's interesting, right? I'll tell a quick story about me. My dad, when I was 15 years old, I'll try and get through this without crying. My dad had a seizure while we were snowmobiling, right? And actually died.
Oh, wow.
And my two brothers were there and my uncle was there. And we did this thing called tag, right? It's basically like, if you get close enough to the other machine, then they're it, right? But it was just kind of like smoothing through the snow and the powder and all that kind of stuff. And I'll never forget this moment. And this is probably when it was just cemented that I was the oldest brother, right? So we go flying over towards my dad, because he's just kind of like looking up in the air. It was weird. Pop his helmet off, completely purple, right? So my uncle and I started doing mouth to mouth and chest compressions on him, right? And we literally bring him back. Right before we start, I just remember looking at my two brothers, and they just looked at me like, dude, don't let him die. And it was like this moment where I was like, oh shit, this is live. Like, we got to like do this. And, we ended up bringing him back. We actually broke into a cabin a couple miles away to like get him warm and try and call people. This is back in the 90s, right? So this isn't like cell phone time, especially out in the backwoods.
Right.
And, we left a note, let him know that we got in there. And I don't know actually what happened with that, but try to be as responsible as we could with breaking and entering.
It's fair. Hey, it was a fair reason, right?
I'm pretty sure they're okay with it. But that was one of those moments where I just remember like, shit, I am the older brother, And even to this day, I'm 43. I've got 3 kids. I don't feel that old. And every now and again, I have this like wave of like, oh, I am an adult. Like, I am the dad now. Even with my son. So my grandfather was my grandfather's 30 years older than my dad. I'm 30 years younger than my dad. And my son's 30 years younger than me. And so I'm going through this parallel moment right now in my life where like I look at my son, who I just love hanging out with, and I'm like, I wonder if my dad loved hanging out with me as much as I love hanging out with him. And I just see these crazy parallels. And the more I thought about it, the more I was like, you know what? Switch the perspective. I'm like, what was my dad thinking while I was growing up? Was he like, oh, I'm an adult now, I'm the boss, I'm in charge, you know what I mean? I'm like going through these same emotions. And it's like, I'm like switching positions over and over, like constantly, almost every single day. And I tend to always try and find the beauty in everything, right? And so with that, it's very refreshing to like have this moment of like, oh, cool, I'm just like my dad. I wonder if he thought, how the hell did I become the adult in the situation,
Dude, so often as kids, we think, right? We just think our parents, they've got it figured out. Yeah. Right? And it's so funny you say that. I'm exactly 30 years younger than my dad, and my son's 30 years younger than me.
Oh, cool.
Exactly. So it's funny you mentioned that. But I think of that often because my dad only lived to 52. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I only have 10 more years of life, and that's the extent of my dad's life.
Yeah.
He actually didn't know.
Yeah.
He's just like me. He actually didn't know. Right. Yeah. So how old were you when you lost your dad?
Oh, he's still alive.
Oh, wait.
Yeah.
So he died and you brought him back to life.
Him back to life. Yeah.
Holy smokes. Yeah. And how old was he? How old were you then?
I was 15. So he'd have been 45. He'd have been 2 years older than I am right now.
Wow. That's wild.
That's actually a perspective I've never even thought about. My son is 2 years away from
that age,
being the age where I saved my dad's life. Yeah.
That's cool.
It's interesting.
Wow. So you still have your dad. That's great. Yep. Okay. Good news. So let's talk about stuff like that, because I feel like there are pivotal moments in your life where maybe you have a realization about your parents or your religion or whatever, right?
All of those. Yep.
Yeah. Let's talk, let's talk about that a little bit. I want to talk about like, is there moments when you think about your childhood or growing up, were there specific moments where you just kind of had like, I don't even want to call it an epiphany, but just like a realization that things aren't the way that you kind of like thought they were?
Many, many times. And so let me explain my personality a tad.
Perfect. Okay.
That'll help probably understand the way I speak and think about things. One of the biggest defining moments of my life growing up, so I grew up LDS or Mormon, as I mentioned. I was an excellent scout. right? I got my Eagle Scout as fast as I possibly could. I earned like almost every merit badge, if not all of them. I can't even remember. But I had 9 Eagle Palms, and I actually finished my scouting career by the time I was 16.
Okay.
Right. And so, which is actually gave me the skills to do that kind of stuff with my dad, or like, you know, be able to start a fire, like tie ropes, survive out in the wilderness, all that kind of stuff. What I loved about doing that is I loved accomplishing tasks. So like having like, you know, the 10 or 15 requirements for a merit badge and a card, and I could just click them off and they give me a reward. It's almost like, you know, like I was a lab rat basically, right? I just learned to like accomplish things all the time and then kind of be in control, right? Like when you're the one that's self-motivated doing things, you're in control, and then you have the pride and of the accomplishment, you know? And so I think the biggest, to answer your question before that, the biggest switch in my life is probably when I left Mormonism.
Okay.
Very, very difficult to do that. I was a true blue believer, 100%, went on a mission, came home, and between the doctrine and the culture and the different teachings and the changings and all the different things, as I really started to examine them, I started finding a lot of disharmony in there. And a lot of things that didn't make sense, and a lot of things that were just kind of like explained too quickly and washed over, and culture had kind of like taken away the sting of some of the crap in the history and you know, all that kind of stuff.
Oh yeah.
For your listeners out there, just watch a YouTube video, explain most of this. But I distinctly remember my wife telling me she's pregnant.
Okay.
And we had been trying for 9 or 10 months at that time.
How old were you at this time?
Let's see, I would have been 26-ish.
Okay. So you were pretty tried and true
27.
with the church up until this point.
Oh yeah, I did home teaching every single month. I always did my calling, like you name it, right?
Okay.
I was in. We went to the temple once a month.
Okay.
You know, did the whole thing, right? And when she told me she was pregnant, I just remember having this thought in my head. It's like, you need to choose in or out. And if it's in all the way, and if it's out all the way.
Were you doing something that you didn't feel like you were in it?
No, there was just so much disharmony in there. I don't know if that's too broad of a word, right? But there's things I was told that are not true. And so I was trying to reconcile that in my mind, right? Like polygamy, right? Okay. I grew up knowing or being told that Joseph Smith had never had a polygamous wife.
Really?
Ever.
Interesting.
Right? I know your vein where you came from is very different.
He did. That's the whole.
And the truth of the matter is he did.
Yeah.
The absolute truth of the matter is he absolutely did. Yep. Right? And so that came out post my mission. The church actually put some essays out and kind of admitted to it. And even in the essays, and I'm not a church hater. I'm really not, right?
Yeah, I understand.
But if we talk about the data, which is where I like to live, the data is what it is, right? Even in that essay that they put out, they said Joseph Smith had relations with a girl who was almost 15. That's 14.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. Right? 14.
Almost 15 is not a thing.
No. Almost what? You know what I'm saying? Yeah, no. When this thing happened, you know what I mean? And
I'm 14 and a half.
Yeah, exactly. But that lie, and it is a lie, that was the catalyst. That one thing right there, because I was like,
this is the thread.
You've lied about this culturally for so long, or allowed the people to lie about it culturally for so long. And then you got so much pressure, you had to put out this manifesto, basically. And then you lied in the manifesto.
Yeah.
Bare minimum, you deceived.
Yeah.
Right. And then it just started unraveling.
Well, if you think about it, see, it's so funny. We forget as a society how unavailable information was. Like just in the 90s. Dude, I remember this one time, this kid tells me, he's like, oh yeah, Van Damme, he died from AIDS because he's gay. And I was like, I don't know how do you verify that? Yeah. I don't even know how, like the only thing you had was like People magazine, right? Like that was the only thing that would tell you if that was true or not. Yeah. And so I think the church really they thrived off that capability to control the narrative, right? And now we move into this information age where everything is available. They're like, okay, well, we got to start we have to do something about this, right?
Yeah. And it's sync.
And it's like, and the thing is, to your point, it's like it pulls a thread, right? Yeah. Because it's like, well, wait a minute. If you lied about that, well, what else? What else is not? Yeah. What else is not true, right? I'm going to ask you this question, and you can tell me if it resonates or not. But even when you were doing the church, when you were showing up and doing home teaching and doing all that stuff, I'm just curious, because I know they talk a lot about the confirmation of the Spirit and the burning in your bosom, right? Did you feel like you weren't getting that, like on a subconscious level, like maybe you were saying you were getting it, but like deep down, you're like, I'm just not getting that. Cause I had this same problem, dude. I was super dedicated to the church. Mm-hmm. I was a little Peter priesthood guy. And when I really came to become honest with myself, I was like, man, I was trying to, and I was saying I was evil or I was sinful or whatever. And that's the reason I wasn't. I'm just curious. Does that
does resonate with me big time. Yeah. So I had a sexual experience when I was really young.
Okay.
That was kind of forced upon me. Okay. Everyone can read between the lines.
Okay.
When that happened, I had kind of made a decision. It was like, okay, I'm unworthy now. And I'm unworthy to.
You took on the shame of it.
Yeah. I took the shame and 100%. Right. And so that happened to me probably when I was like 11.
Okay.
Kind of block it out a little bit.
Absolutely.
But, you know, as it progresses on, I get to be almost, I am 18. I'm about 18 and a half. Keep on forgetting between the 19 and 18 year olds now. And I had a girl in high school actually look at me, and she was talking about, I was a good football player, and so I was going to try and get a scholarship somewhere and go play football.
Okay.
And I was talking about that, and she looked at me and she said, "You'll never amount to anything if you don't go on a mission to your wife." And it first, of course, pissed me off, right? Because I was like, what the, who are you? Blah, blah, blah. And I bet you this girl doesn't even remember saying this to me, if you want to know the truth.
Because she's just regurgitating, dude.
Yeah.
Like,
and so I thought, and it burned me bad. And so I actually went to my bishop and I sat down and I told him everything that happened to me, right? And he's an amazing man. Probably one of the kindest adults I've ever had kind of talk to me. And if you understand Mormon culture, generally, when you go to confess stuff, it's normally like you take a sacrament off and all this kind of stuff. And he literally looked at me and he said, "Mark, you suffered enough. Go take the sacrament on Sunday." And I was like, it was like this burden kind of lifted off of me. And that was probably the first time that I'd ever had like a semi-spiritual experience, right? And so like, a couple of weeks later, I went and had another follow-up meeting with him, and I started talking to him because I was also doing some of the normal teenage boy stuff, right?
Yeah.
So it wasn't all, it was a mixed bag of confession. And he just said, "Hey, do you want to go on a mission?" And I was like, "I've never really considered it." And he's like, "You should." And I was like, "Okay." And I did it to make my parents proud, 100%.
Interesting.
So I signed up and I went. And I tell that story to tell this moment. When I went to the LDS temple, and this is not the same experience for everybody, but when I went through it, I was having alarm bells going off in me that I was in a cult. And it was overwhelming. It was really, really hard. I went to the temple on Friday. I went on my mission on Tuesday. So Friday temple, Saturday I went to a concert with my friends. Sunday was farewell with family, the whole kit and caboodle, right? Monday morning, I get set apart to go on a mission, right? I hang out with my friends basically, and then at 7:00 in the morning, I'm on a flight to Chicago on my way to the Preston, England temple, our mission, mission home out there, mission training center. Got to remember these words. And so it was like bam, 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 bam. All of a sudden, I'm like in this foreign country, and I'm like, okay, like let's. What the hell was that? You know what I mean? And it's like, you can chalk it up to a million things. Even when the bishop was kind to me, that's what it was. It wasn't a spiritual confirmation of anything. He was very kind to me, and I was hurting. I had something in me that I never told anybody.
Yeah.
Ever. And he was kind to me. That's what it was.
Well, for someone to tell you it's not your fault, because if you're in your adolescence and you feel a feeling that is foreign to you, your subconscious automatically walls it off. And the feeling you feel, you take that on as it's yours.
Yeah.
You felt shame and you thought it was your problem. Cause I went through the same thing. So in some ways he was a source of some relief.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And so, and then I have that like weird moment in the temple, right? And for people who don't understand the culture, this is a very built up moment, right? This is like the pinnacle of Mormonism. I'm in there with my parents, my grandparents, friends and family. You're dressed in clothes that are...
There's a lot of pomp and circumstance.
There's a pageantry in there, right?
Quite a bit.
You're wearing a uniform,
yes.
Or you're wearing a hat, like all this kind of stuff, right? And I don't say that to mock it. It just is what it is, right?
Yeah.
And So, and then all of a sudden I'm on a mission. I'm in another country and I'm like, I'm not going home early. I mean, that was kind of the mindset, right? I don't care if this doesn't work out, I'm just going to live here for 2 years. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so then I get into my mission. My MTC was about 21 days, 22 days, because I was English speaking. Then I went to Scotland where I did my mission. I get into there like 6 weeks and my mission presence banging on. You have to have a testimony before you can give someone else or help someone else find their testimony and all this kind of stuff. And I was like, well, shit, I
probably should have had one before I made all those promises.
Well, yeah, exactly. I didn't even know there was a thing. Yeah. So every night I prayed every single night to get some sort of confirmation, and that's kind of what they challenge you to do in a mission, right? You got the whole 3rd Nephi chapter 11, pray and ask and you shall find, all this kind of stuff, right? And, and so one night, I just said to myself, I was like, Mark, you've always known this is true. And I was like, boom, that's it. Boom, locked it up, put it in there, shoved that thing in my chest. That's my testimony. That's my one moment that God's going to gift me to everything's true, right?
So interesting.
Held on to that for about 5 more years.
Yeah, so interesting.
And it's just, I wanted it to be true so freaking bad. And I felt like a freaking fraud knocking on people's doors, trying to teach them this thing where I didn't have my own testimony, which is kind of funny because the church actually created this in me. Right? If that narrative never would have been given to me, I would have never have thought I needed to have my moment kind of thing. And I would never have thought there was a time around it either.
Right.
And so, no. Well, I never received a spiritual of anything.
Well, and the thing is, you also, because everyone's saying that they have it, you're kind of like, well, what's wrong with me? What's wrong with me? Dude, I guarantee there's a lot of people in religion in general, not just one religion or another. There's a lot of people that are like, well, where is it? Where is it? I don't know where it is. I think I have it, right? It's like you don't know. I think that's where the word faith comes in really heavy. It's a heavy use of the word faith instead of knowing. What's funny, dude, is I left the FLDS. I got lost and then I was like, well, maybe I'll join the Mormon church. Went through the whole process, found a Mormon girl, went in the temple. Right when I went through the temple, dude, I'm like, son of a bitch, I joined another cult. I was like, no. I was really hoping for, again, that really like magical, spiritual experience. I really was. Yeah. So, okay. So that's where you kind of quote unquote got your testimony, not very rock solid. You go along for 5 years. Now your wife's going to have a baby. Talk to me about what happened.
Yeah, my mindset was just like, you got to choose, right? You can't be wishy-washy with this. Because the previous year I'd gotten real wishy-washy, right? Where I was like, oh man, I really got to.
What was your level of wishy-washy though? Like just not wanting to go to church or like what?
No, it was, I wanted to know. That was the wishy-washy. I was like, man, this doesn't make sense. Logic is ripping me over here. And I'm like, yeah, but faith is over here. Faith is undefined,
well, they've warned us about this, right?
Oh yeah.
They warned you about
more
this.
now, but yeah.
Don't look at those things.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Like doubt your doubts. Right. That was another thing when I can't remember which one said it, Uchtdorf or one of the apostles, they said, doubt your doubts. And I was like, that is exactly the opposite of what Gordon B. Hinckley said. So now I have 2 prophets, quote unquote prophets that are, not in harmony with each other.
Yeah. It's like, which do I take the revelation that I'm receiving versus like, how do you delineate? And
And the truth of the matter is I did exactly their formula. He said it. I thought about it. I went in my own mind, meditation, prayer, and it was deemed to be untrue. Right? Because the flip side of it for them is, take what we say, put it in your heart, and your heart will confirm that it's truth, right? Well, my heart said, that is bullshit. Mm-hmm. And then I remember, I'll never forget this moment. I was sitting in my basement. I think I had my baby by this time. She might have been a couple months old, right? And I was studying, and I just closed the book, and I just had this overwhelming feeling of it's just not true, Mark. And none of them are. And I was like, okay.
So you were the new Joseph Smith. Because that's the same same revelation he got.
A little bit, yeah.
None of them are true.
Yeah, none of them are true. And here's the thing. I'm glad you brought this up earlier, right? Because it's not just an LDS Mormon thing.
Right.
It's not even just a Christian thing. It is a religion thing in general.
Yeah.
Right? And there's beauty. There's so much beauty in religion. Religion and history are so intertwined. I've actually been studying religion the last couple of weeks because I got into a conversation with one of my friends about their religion. And it was kind of funny how much they didn't know about it, but it was, And I kind of went back and I'm like, oh yeah, I actually know a ton about this stuff, right? Like for example, Christianity, right? There's a bazillion different sects of it, right? It all comes down to where they claim authority from. That's it, right? And so, we can go on and on about religion, but my main point is I think religion is really good for some people, and it's middle of the road for a lot of people, and it's bad for some.
Yeah.
Right. Pretty much like anything. Right. And if anyone's listening to this, I hope they're not taking this as a religion bashing session. What it really is I would just encourage people to find out what they actually believe, and you got to cut all the noise out to do that.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a great point. That's so I've come to a conclusion on this, and let's put it this way. For me, I know it. Does that make I'm not looking, I'm not searching. I've come to the conclusion. And the ultimate breakthrough for me was in ayahuasca when it said, you are it. You are it. You have it. You are it. Stop looking elsewhere. It's not outside of you. It's in you.
Yeah.
What I realized after that was almost everything in this world, whether it be your job, religion, Netflix, everything is trying to take your attention at all times. So we're putting our attention outside of us, our partner, our kids, we're putting our attention outside of us, and we're saying, oh, this money will fulfill me. Yeah. This will fulfill me. The religion will fulfill me. Right. And it's like, for whatever reason, we don't quite get there. It almost feels like you're like, you almost grab the edge, then you miss it. Yeah. With all of it. And for me, when I went to Costa Rica with that feeling of like, I don't even know why I'm going. I just feel like there's this need to do it, because really I was searching for this solution to this problem that I had of like, where is this truth? And it's like, dude, it's in you. And I think that, the source of like depression and anxiety, it is caused by a separation from you and your higher self. And that feeling that you're sitting there going through the scriptures and like digging through, that higher self is like, dude, flicking you on the head. It's like, it's not there for you. I know you're trying, it's not there. Yeah. But then you go out on your search, and it's like, you're searching and searching and searching. How do we, like, my whole thing is like, how do you bring yourself back to that? Bring your higher self and your physical self here together. Mm-hmm. Because until you do that, you will always be trying to play the dart game. Like, where is it? Where is it? Where is it? Yeah. That's my theory.
Well, and I agree with you 100%. I've also participated in ayahuasca, but mine did
When did you do it? Because you hadn't done it when...
November.
Okay.
Yeah, we did it in November, but I got my trash kicked the entire time. So
did you go like...
We brought a shaman up.
Okay.
So we flew...
Did you do 1, 2?
2 nights.
2 nights.
2 nights in a row.
Tell me. I want to hear. Trash kicked. What happened?
I dry heaved the entire time and dealt with...
You never purged?
No, I purged. Oh, hell yeah, I purged. Okay. Yeah. So technically, for people who've never done ayahuasca, it's a little one shot, an ounce of a brew, basically a tea, mm-hmm. right, from a vine and a branch down in the Amazon. Then it creates DMT, and then it creates a Moira inhibitor inside of your intestines so that you don't. DMT will break down in your body in about 15 minutes, right? So when you take ayahuasca, it'll extend it to about 5-6 hours, mm-hmm. right? 4, 5, 6 hours. So I was the first one to go. I took my drink. I went and sat down on my pad. There was like 25 people in there or something like that, right? And I remember distinctly thinking, so most people purge or they throw up, right? And I was anticipating to do that. I was waiting for it to happen, right? And so I sat down. Now, when you take this stuff, it normally takes about an hour to kick in, mm-hmm. right? The second I sat down, I started feeling sick. And then I got real mad in my head because I was like, you're making this up, bro. Like chemically, it has not even hit your bloodstream yet, right? Like, what are you doing? Like, you're like those normal people on like a normal journey, right? That's like freaking out because they're breathing. It's like, you're just breathing, you're good.
Yeah.
And my friend, my really, really good friend sat down next to me and he goes, how you doing, man? I'm like, dude, I feel sick. And I'm like, I know it's in my head.
And there was no music at this point or anything?
No, nothing.
Okay.
No, I'm not joking. I went first, he went second. By the time, so I'll continue the story.
You were feeling sick.
Yeah. So I'm like sitting there and I'm like, well, this is so weird. And I'm talking to him and I'm like, dude, your mouth starts getting like really wet right before you throw up, right? And I'm like, you gotta be freaking kidding me. So I just reach over and grab my bucket. Boom. Just boom, in this thing. And the second that happened, if anyone's never done a psychedelic before, they kind of kick on like a light switch and boom, all of a sudden you have like, DMT is like full encompassing psychedelic. So that's what you see, right? You're like in a movie theater, basically, just lit up, right? And then I felt like I needed to go to the bathroom. Okay. And so then I just stood up and went, right? There might've been 4 people at that time that even been served, right? Gosh. And then I threw up for 5 hours. And when I say I threw up maybe 2 more times with actual stuff in my stomach. And then they were bringing me water and I just sat there.
When you threw up, did you identify what you were thinking about when that was happening?
Anger the whole time. Yep. The entire
Interesting.
time. Yep.
So, all right. Did you ever come to any understanding of the source of the anger? Okay. I know
exactly what it is.
Do you want to share or?
I'd love to.
Okay, please. I love this.
I don't want to share it at all.
I love this.
My whole life, right? If someone wrongs me, I'm not a shy person. I'll go into conflict. I actually don't mind. I actually like conflict. Funny enough, I'll avoid it because I'm more of a peaceful person. But if you get me in it, I love it. I'm kind of a weird version of myself in there. And so, but what happens is if someone screws me in business or steals from me or does something I don't like, what I generally do is I take the anger part of it out and I put it inside me and then I just go make the best decision, right? I talk a lot about this in my business coaching and stuff, but I want to stay in the data. I want to stay out of emotion, right? People who are emotional make bad decisions. People who sit in the data make the good decisions, right? And I've never been able to get that out of my system. When I go to the gym, I'm not angry in the gym. I'm not pushing weights and blowing the stuff out of me. Probably would have been smart to do that, but and I also didn't think I was that angry, right, about things. And the whole time, I remember I was actually I was battling with Mother Ayahuasca the entire time verbally. I didn't realize it. I was actually in a back bedroom. I left the entire group and went back to my own bedroom because I was just having such a rough time. And yeah, that's just what I heard in my head over and over again. It's like, this is the stuff you don't deal with. Boom, boom. And I was just like, and the second I would get mad, I'd be like, this is bullshit. And boom, I would just be like, oh, it's like going crazy in this bucket. And you're just dry heaving, right? It's like, but it's wildly exhausting. 5 hours of that is hard. If anyone did it for an hour, right? So the workers or the helpers, right? They're not allowed to talk to you. They're not supposed to touch you. They're not supposed to, they just, if you can say water, they'll bring you water. They'll fix your bucket, all that kind of stuff, right? And all the people that were working that night with us were all women, and 2 of them cried while they came in there. And then one kept on offering me like a hug, and like I wanted her to so bad, and I was just like, no, I got to go through this. And I wasn't going to do it the second day. There was like,
of course not.
I was like,
why would you?
Yeah, I was like,
you're like, this is horrible.
Yeah, and I didn't really get the whole thing probably for a week or 2.
Sure.
Right. I was just like, that was a lot. You know
so, okay. But you, so after the first night, then cause I had the same experience. First night, I was like, okay, I don't need to do that anymore because I'm good with whatever the hell that was. Yeah. So you did it a second night.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Actually, it was my wife.
She convinced you to?
She told me I'm going to.
Okay.
And she never does that.
Okay.
Yeah. I was sitting there and I'm like, I'm not doing this tomorrow. And she was like feeling bad for me too. Right. Like which I hated. It made me more angry. Like I was just,
interesting.
It was this weird thing. I'm like, I don't want people to feel bad for me. I did ayahuasca. You did ayahuasca. I had my experience. You had yours. You don't need to feel bad for me. And, but some of the most people I love the most are there. Right? In fact, almost everyone that I love the most was there. Not every single person, but sure. It was hard. And I just remember laying there with my wife at the end of the night. I was just like,
did you just do 1 cup on the first night?
I did a cup and a half.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
I planned on doing about 3.
Yeah, I did 3 every single night.
Yeah.
But again, it's just entirely different for every single person. And I'll tell you this, the one thing that I say more than anything, because I was running across this video on TikTok and this girl's like, I've done 45 ayahuasca sessions and this and that. And all I wrote in the comments was, I'm like, the medicine will take you as far as you're willing to go.
Yeah.
That's it. It doesn't matter if you do 100 or 1.
Yeah.
And to your point, people have taken it right and they don't feel anything.
Oh, it's crazy.
In your situation, you were freaking full on in it in like a minute.
Yeah, exactly. Which is wild.
But right? that's what I believe is like the power of the medicine. It knows.
Yeah.
It freaking knows, dude. All right. So you decide to do it a second night.
Yeah. So we're laying in bed with my wife and I go, I'm not doing this tomorrow. She looks at me and goes, you're doing this tomorrow. This whole thing was set up for you. And I was like, oh, I hate that. And I was like, I'll talk about it in the morning, right? I was trying to like not commit to it. And I slept, got up in the morning, and started eating. We had a chef come in, they were cooking us all that like super healthy food and all that kind of stuff, right? So we're eating breakfast, which is kind of good, but also kind of weird.
Yeah. You know? I know exactly what you're saying. Precisely what you're saying.
And everyone's talking about their experience and all this kind of stuff. And I walked over to the shaman, and she was a lady, and I asked her, I said, hey, obviously I had a really rough night, and she had talked to me that night and stuff. And she goes, what do you want to do tonight? And I was like, I'm going to go back in. And she's like, okay, well, let's layer it tonight. We'll just give you half a cup each time. And then, you'll deal with it. And then we'll give you a little bit more and we'll just layer it all night. We'll get you up to where you need to be. Mm-hmm. And I was like, cool, that sounds good. So it's so funny. We walk in there too. And my wife goes, she goes, hey, you go last this time. And I was like, okay. And they separate you like men and women on either side, right? So then we sit down and there's like this whole 45-minute thing in the beginning.
Your wife did it too?
Yeah. Okay. Michelle was there. And so, you pray to the north, pray to the west, but you saw this kind of stuff, right? Which is actually beautiful, but it also amps your anxiety up at the
Sure.
Especially on day 2, because you know what you're going to expect, right? And I know the bliss. I've studied and heard and listened to the blissful part of ayahuasca, which I have a massive desire to get to.
Yeah.
And so she calls for the first people. I just walk right up, right? Because I'm like, I hate the anxiety of this.
Yeah, I'm not waiting.
Take the cup and just sit
Let
down.
me just get it.
It's not going to stop it. You know what I mean? So I take half a cup. I go sit down on my mat, and my buddy went up after me again, and he comes and sits down next to me, right? So I like put my headphones on this time because I'm just going to go to my special place. I didn't like the music they were playing, so I put on my own like journey music because I need to like at least set this up for an hour or two, and then I'll float back into the group. Yeah, I got like 10 minutes in, and I got pissed off again because it sounds crazy unless you've done ayahuasca, but like, I'm sitting there and I start to kind of see like the purpley glow and like kind of flowy stuff. And I close my eyes and it's like really a movie screen. And Mother Ayahuasca wouldn't show herself to me. And I just remember going like, you're just a seductive temptress. Like you don't even exist. Boom, I start throwing up, right? It was just boom. And then I did the exact same thing all night long again. The exact same freaking thing.
Love it.
And that was only on half a cup, right? So you're talking half an ounce.
You didn't even take any more. Holy crap, dude.
No, it just rips through me, which is weird because the other psychedelics don't. I normally take a double or triple dose of other people. I don't tell people anymore because it freaks them out, but like, I'm the big dude. And so, and then you're really emotional for days, right? And my wife had a really hard time with it because she wanted to come in and comfort me and I told her not to. And
that's why doing it with, by the way, that's why doing it with spouses can be challenging.
Yeah.
Because you're watching your loved one suffer.
Yeah.
Right. And it might take you out of your trip a little bit.
I think I did. I think I ripped it out of her. She says I didn't, but she's such a motherly type person, right? That it's like, and one of the biggest things I learned from it too is like, I actually have to have her touch a lot and it calms me down. I didn't, every night when we fall asleep, we don't cuddle when we sleep just because we both sleep hot, right?
Yeah.
But I can't fall asleep unless her hand is close to me and touching bare skin. And when she came in the second night and just kind of like rubbed her, I was like laying on this bed, right? Just kind of like, taking my ass whooping. And she just kind of like, put her hand like kind of up my lat and then kind of onto my shoulder. And it was just like this, like just golden touch of just like calmness. And I kind of held on that for a long time. And then I was like, I got to get away from this for a minute and meditate through this and decide what was really going on. Mm-hmm. And that's where I came up with the little compartments inside of me that are just full of anger that I hold on to so I don't unleash it back onto people. And to be honest, it's not like I have some massive epiphany. I don't really get rid of my anger.
Yeah, that's okay.
I get rid of it a little bit better than I used to.
If I would have done it 2 times, I would have gotten very little from it.
Yeah.
The third night is the night that I had like the massive like head exploding breakthrough. And I'm not saying that's the same for everyone, right? Like to your point. But here's the thing. Here's one thing that I talk to people about, because I tell people a lot about that I've done it and what it's done for me. And I caution them. I say, no, don't just go do it. It's not for everyone to just go do. It's not this Ozempic, like fix it all thing. It's not that. Cause I said, it's going to show you yourself. And if you're not prepared for that, it's going to be a long process because you have to accept it. And with accepting it, it's not as easy as saying, okay, I accept it, because you sit there and you fight. Yeah. And you fight and you fight and you fight. You can't even stop yourself from fighting because it's so deeply ingrained in your personality. And all she's trying to do is show you who you really are, but we don't believe it. We won't believe it. Yeah. And so she has to take it. What's your medicine that you need to get you to understand? She's like, I'm going to make him see his anger. I'm going to make him feel his anger. Yeah. Because that's the only way that he will understand what it is. Wild, dude.
No, 100%. And it's so funny too.
Was it humbling?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I figured.
Yeah. I feel like I'm a very coachable person, to be honest. Right. The only difference is, and I think it's just because I'm honest about it, you just have to be qualified to coach me. So the general population, I'm not taking a lot of advice from, right?
Yep.
But if I see you as someone that can help me with something because of some expertise or a trust level or something like that, then I feel like I'm very, very coachable.
Yep.
So I feel like I can get humble really, really quickly. I don't actually think I'm a prideful person. Mm-hmm. I think I'm more of a confident person. Mm-hmm. And so, it was very, very humbling. And even now, I'm probably going to go somewhere end of the year and all by myself. I might go with one other person if she really wants to come with me. She asked me if I wanted to do it again. I was like, I'm going to do it again. And
my recommendation is you go to the place I went to. That's where Aaron Rodgers went. That's where he filmed his.
Oh, down in Costa Rica?
Yeah. So they actually filmed my book on the mantle really? In his, because I left a signed copy of my book there. Yeah. And in his documentary, they filmed the bookshelf, and there my book is sitting.
Oh, that's cool.
I was like, yes. But anyways, the reason I recommend that place specifically, one, the shaman Pablo is like, dude, he's a freaking shaman. Yeah. Holy macaroni, dude. Like, I have so much respect. Like, he knows what he's doing, dude. I don't know a better way to say that. The guy is like he is like the most legitimate medicine man. Yeah. He was like commanding the thunder, dude. It was freaking
and these
wild.
Shamans, if people understand what a shaman is, because it's in America, it's really easy to just like Hollywood this stuff, right? Like, shaman, whatever, It's like, no. This dude was raised from the day he was born to be a shaman. His dad, his grandpa was be. They don't even know how far back this goes. It's thousands of years.
Exactly.
Right? I listened to Jordan Peterson's take one time on ayahuasca, and it was really interesting. He basically said something along the lines of, the chance in the Amazon that an indigenous person is just roaming through there and finds these two things. It's a vine and a branch, right? Or a leaf and a branch. Mm-hmm. And then to turn them into a tea and then to be able to get the chemical compound correctly with the heat and everything to actually extract out DMT and enough to freaking
and then decide to drink it.
And then drink it.
And then do it again.
Yeah.
Once you had that experience.
Oh yeah. And he's like, if you understand the Amazon, there's millions of plants and bugs and all sorts of crap that can happen in there. Mathematically, this is almost impossible. Yeah. It's like getting hit by lightning 85 times in a row.
Yeah.
And so his conclusion, it's divinely inspired.
Yep.
Right. My conclusion is, I hope.
I know how you feel, dude. I know exactly what you're saying. Yeah. My recommendation is go there. They only allow 8 people at a time. You're secluded for 7 days. You do it 3 times. Even the way that Pablo does the sessions, he, first of all, his music is ridiculous. Yeah. He sits there and sings and plays, and it's just incredible, dude. That's all I listen to now. I don't even listen to anything else. And that's been 2 years, but I don't know, dude. It's like the energy and like, it's the environment. And the third night he ramps it up and gives you something that's way more powerful. And holy crap, dude.
I'll have to try that.
Incredible, man.
Wait, it's not rhythmia then. It's a different one.
No, it's called Behold.
Behold? Okay, cool. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'll get the info from you.
Yeah. I think I might go again in January.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, let's coordinate.
I actually
I don't mind going with friends.
I actually think that would be cool, really, because I told myself, I was like, because dude, I did not leave there wondering anything.
Yeah.
I left there knowing everything. And the amazing thing to me is that feeling has not left me. And it's been 2 years. I was always worried. I was like, oh, is it going to fade? Am I going to like lose my energy for it? Not even like a hair.
Yeah.
And what the wild thing is, dude, is I've done journeys with psilocybin. I just go right back into the ayahuasca, same trip.
Oh, really?
I have not had a separate, the 4 times that I've done it, I have a continuation of the 3rd ayahuasca experience. I like every time I do it.
Interesting.
And it just goes further and further and further. It stays on the same line, continuing. So it's almost like I feel like I'm in ayahuasca when I'm doing psilocybin.
Oh, that's cool.
Freaking wild, dude.
Yeah.
Like, anyway, so
they're very different substances.
Very different. So I told myself, I was like, I'm not going to go do ayahuasca. I may never do it again. I'll just listen like I did before. And like, if there's a feeling of like, I should go, then I will. Yeah. And I feel it surfacing.
Yeah.
So it will be interesting to see.
Yeah. Yeah.
But dude, that's so cool. I'm glad you did it. I mean, okay. So, I know you have a ton of success business wise and like you have a beautiful family. What do you think? Like, do you feel like it sounds like you're still on that mission to find that thing, right?
No.
Okay.
No, I'm not. When I left the church, about 15 years ago, I became an atheist. I just burned everything to the ground. I didn't intend to become that way right out the gate. Right. But I didn't know it was real. I didn't know it was true. I didn't know it was real. So I just burned it all to the ground. At least that's the way I say it. Right. When I say that, I mean, I burnt it all to the ground in my head. Right. But that was also my late 20s. I was building my businesses. I had little kids. I had a wife that I'd only been married to for 5 or 6 years at the time, right? And I was just like, I don't have time for this. I don't have time to dig into this. Because I obsess. I'm kind of obsessive compulsive, right? So I go to do something, I go all the way generally. And it was a mushroom journey 3.5 years ago that I'll never forget that either, right? Because it's interesting coming from someone who never did any drugs or substances or anything like that, right? Like I remember holding this, and you generally take it in chocolate or you can take it in a powder form.
Yep.
And I just remember holding it. I'm like, why am I doing this? Like literally, why am I doing this? Why am I here?
What was the circumstance in which?
I got invited by some friends that said that it would really open my mind to some things. And I love mind expansion and knowledge.
Yep.
And so, and they talked about the beauty of it. And I had listened to a lot of podcasts. I listened to Rogan about ayahuasca. Funny enough, he's never even done it, but he had a lot of guests on that had done it, like Marcus Aubrey and those guys. And I was just always like, you know what, maybe if I had the opportunity to do that, I'd try it. Because it's actually really harmless technically. And so anyway, I'm holding this piece of chocolate and I'm like, why am I doing this? And I just had this feeling where it's like, Mark, just go down the rabbit hole, dude. This is like that moment, like tomorrow, if you didn't like it, you'll never do it again.
Yep.
Pop it in my mouth, The funny thing with me is as everyone else is dropping in, it did nothing to me. I'm stone cold sober. And I'm like, so I go over to the shaman, right? And I'm like, hey, I can't feel anything. And these people are like having a moment. And I'm like, what the hell? And he goes out here and he just doubles my dose, right? So then, 30 minutes later, I'm like, oh, wow. And I just, it was like this heady, lovely place where I was with half people I knew and half strangers. And I was connecting with them and I watched egos dissipate. And an ego to me, by the way, is not a bad thing. It's just the way you present in this world. Right?
Yep.
And so, but it was just people like letting their guard down. It's probably the way to explain that out, right? And I had beautiful conversations that night. And I just, for the first time in a long time, I was like, maybe there's a God. And then it just kicked me off in this whole like, well, let me dive into this, right? And like really, I have time now. I don't have the financial struggles I did 15 years ago. I'm at a place where I could actually put some energy into this. And that's what I did. And I studied like crazy. I got 3 certificates for it. I'm licensed in Oregon to facilitate. I went all the way as far as I could and then experiencing it and bringing some of my friends and people along with me. So, but really my belief now, Thomas, is I hope with every inch and measure of that word that there is a God, that we live after we die. Other than that, I don't know what else there is.
Yeah.
So I'm not searching for that. I've kind of concluded that, and I concluded that probably 2 years ago. Okay. 2-ish years ago. And I hope I meet my maker. You know, I would love to sit in that space. I would say a room, but I'm sure it's not a room. You know what I mean? Like I would love to. And I my own personal belief is that if there is a God, he is my father. And that's the way that he'll manifest to me. And so every time I envision that moment, it's always with a loving father, right? And then I always think about my son coming to me, and it's like, how could that meeting go bad? Especially being put down on this earth where there's so much complexity here, right? With like this way and that way and this way and up, down, left, all over the place. In fact, when I left the church, I had a lot of my very good friends who love me, right? I still have all my friends from when I left, well, almost all my friends from when I left the church, my good ones. And they would ask me, they're like, hey, can I ask you a question? I'm like, yeah, sure. Ask me anything you want. You know, I'm a pretty open book. And they said, well, what do you do on Judgment Day?
How do you feel to be a son of perdition?
Right, yeah, kind of that, yeah. You know, they'd be like, what are you going to say to God? And I'm like, well, I think God's omnipotent, right? So I don't think he's going to ask me a rhetorical question. Would we agree? People are like, yeah, I agree. He's not going to ask rhetorical questions. Fair enough. So he also knows the reason I left the church, right? And he's like, yeah. And it's almost one of those moments where it's like, you're the reason, God, that I left the church, because you put all this knowledge in front of me and you know who I am. You knew exactly what I would pick, right? There's no way around that conversation. And I don't think he's going to even have that conversation with me if he does. I think it's going to be like, welcome home.
Dude, there's an amazing book by Deepak Chopra called How to Know God. You have to read it because the way that he explains it is like masterful. But he basically says there's like 7 levels that a human goes through. And the first level is equivalent to Genesis, where God is like, I'm going to kill you if you don't do what I say. Then you go to level 2. That's Jesus. Nope. I love, accept you, all these things, right? There's level 3, level 4, level 5, level 6, level 7. Level 7, you accept that you are. That you are. Yeah. There isn't if the God is son, if God is the sun, you are a ray of light. You are it. You're just a different version of it.
Yeah. And see, I agree with that 100%. I think if God created this universe, he created us, he created everything inside of here. We're all stardust. We're all the same material. Yeah.
You're just going through a progression to understand what you are. And like, that was like the biggest thing that I got from ayahuasca. Like when I got this huge breakthrough of like, oh my gosh, I can fulfill myself. I like said it in my mind. I was like, I'm healed.
Yeah.
And the medicine's like, you never needed to be healed.
Right.
You just needed to remember what you are.
Yeah.
And I was like, holy shit.
Yeah. No, you're right. We don't need to be healed.
We don't.
We really don't.
Dude, think about a baby. Think about a freaking baby, dude. Why does everyone love them so much? They're just beaming with just everything, right? They're everything. And then they just watch us and they absorb how we behave, and they become jaded and they lose that like perfect love.
Yeah. One of the tenets of Christianity is forgiveness, right? Unconditional forgiveness. The other side of it is unconditional love. It's actually my main contention with Christianity. No one believes that and no one practices that, but it's the main tenet that's taught all of forgiveness.
Yeah, but you become super judgmental.
You are to forgive. God is to judge. You are to forgive, right? And then you are to love unconditionally. How many people in your life love you unconditionally?
It's a comparison game constantly, dude. That's all life. It's just like, who's doing this? Who's doing that?
No, very few.
It's only when you go inside and you fulfill yourself, you're like, oh, it doesn't matter it doesn't matter what they think. It doesn't matter what I think. Like, it doesn't matter. and then you kind of lose that, like, and then, I mean, for me, dude, I start to see people in like, they're in just different progressions of discovering themselves. They're just at they're at a different phase of discovering themselves. And it can be anger, and it can be this, and it can be that. And it's this fighting and like battling that we go through. And then, then it's my parents' fault, and it's the religion's fault, and it's this person's fault and that person's fault. And then you're like, oh wait, it's my fault because I'm believing that. Then you accept that. Then you move, like, it's just this progression. It's this slow progression that everyone goes through. So when you realize that everyone's on that same mission, I just live in this like thought process of like vibration, like all the time. Like I'll say certain things to certain people, and it's like I'm on 101.5 and they're on 92.5. And first, they can't hear me. They can hear woo, 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 woo. That's what they hear me say. Yeah. And I understand that that's just their vibration. That's where they're at. It's not their fault. It's not my fault. Have you ever read something in a book and then like years later you think about it and you're like, oh shit, that's what they meant.
All the time.
That
mostly comes from movies, but yeah.
Okay. But that's what I mean by like, yeah, it's like this vibrational level, right? Like the more you go up, the more you start to realize that like a lot of this stuff is right in front of us. We've been seeing it our whole lives, and it's like we can't see it because we're not on the right station. No,
yeah, it's set and setting, and then where you're at. So, for example, I just spoke to a company about investing, right? And the owner of the company is a dear friend of mine. I love the guy to death, right? And I was super grateful to go speak in front of all of his employees, right? And I'm talking to them, and they're young men. This is a construction company, right? And a lot of them in their 20s. And I'm like, guys, you need to start investing, and I'm going to explain to you why, right? And you could feel it after a couple of minutes. I'm kind of losing some guys, right? And I go, hey guys, get back here. You know, I'll say the F word every now and again, right? To like pull their attention, like, oh, you said the F word, you know? And I do it to like grab them, right? And I keep on going into it, right? And my whole thing with it is, it's like, guys, don't get to 40 and regret you didn't do this. The only thing that you guys have right now is time. And it goes away every single day, right? You invest something for 50 years, right? You're rich. It's almost impossible to lose, right? But if you only have 5-year horizon or 10-year horizon, like you have to put all your money into that and hope, you know, which is not an investing strategy. And that's kind of what we're talking about, right? It's like, you got to get people to a point where they go, oh, you know what? That does make sense. Boom. And so when I speak in those ways, I try and speak in layman's terms. I don't use a lot of like investing words or that kind of stuff. You don't lose people, but I also want them to go, oh, he said, like I told him today, I said, just buy good companies. But name some good companies like Amazon, you know, whatever, NVIDIA, Palantir, all this kind of stuff. I'm like, yeah, those are all great companies. Why don't you buy them? Do you wish you owned them? And they go, oh yeah, I'd love to own NVIDIA. Then
go buy some. You can buy some.
Go buy some of it. If you really believe that company is going to do well, go buy some of it. And it was like, and I could see a couple of it click with some of the guys, and you never really know, right? But you know, at the end of my speech, I said, hey guys, I'm going to come and talk to you guys in 6 months. Every damn one of you guys better have a freaking brokerage account opened up, and you better have at least $1,000 in it. Yeah. And they're like, okay, you know.
Well, dude, you make such a great point in that, like that idea of investing, you have to apply it to every single thing in your life. Working out, eating, right? Like none of it comes fast.
Yeah. Who you marry.
It's everything, dude. Yeah. It's like, what am I doing every single day to create what? Because we are creators. We create all the time. And we get numbed into this like blindness of what it is we are creating. Yeah. So if I'm just sitting in front of Netflix and friggin' eating trash food and just like, that's literally what you're creating. You're creating that. So it's hard, to your point, and the world in general, whether it be religion or government or whatever, they have a megaphone that is broadcasting their vibration at all times, trying to get everyone on their vibration. Yeah. So you can't not hear it, right? Yeah. So it's like you said it in the beginning, you have to get rid of all the noise and you have to find yourself. Because once you do, you'll have that direct contact to that intuition, which is your higher self, which is going to tell you, hey, the church is wrong. Hey, this is the direction you should go. This is what you should do. It will tell you if you build that relationship.
And one of the funny things too is burning everything to the ground, you guys, is actually burning down your perception, right? And then your preconceived notions, right? So for example, like when you just said like, you know, you got to clear your mind so you can know that the church is wrong. You might also clear your mind to know that that's the path you should be on for the time.
Yeah.
Right? Like I always say too, like people go, do you ever regret being Mormon? I'm like, absolutely not. The stuff I learned from that, I was safe. I was taught organization skills, you know, working hard, accomplishing things, all that's wrapped up in there.
Yeah.
You can't unwind that part.
Yeah.
So what I generally tell people is like, no, my time in the LDS church was a stepping stone to where I am now. Just like whatever happens to me in the near future is going to be a stepping stone to whatever that is. Right. But you have to be coachable and open, right? You have to be like, okay, that's why I really encourage meditation to people, right? And meditation and prayer are the exact same thing, guys. It doesn't matter if you're talking to yourself in meditation or you're talking to a higher being in prayer. It's the exact same thing. But all you're really doing is just flushing your mind out and going like, okay, what do we believe? What do we need to do? Where should we be? Right. And things will start popping in your mind.
Well, and the confirmation of that, we have all had that gut feeling about something. And we always in hindsight are like, I should have listened to myself. Damn it. I knew it. Right. Yeah. Like that, we always have that conversation. What I started to realize once I had cleared a lot of this out is like that voice is talking all the time. And anytime I come to an impasse, I can just quiet myself and like, okay, I'm not to do anything right now. You know what I mean? Like, and you have that, like, I'm sure we've all dealt with people where they're just so indecisive, right? And they just feel like they're so weighed down by decisions and they can't make a decision. And they're just like, I don't know what to do, this and that. Dude, that is our society in general because we have lost communication with our intuition. We don't trust it.
Yeah.
And so if you do clear all that noise out, you do start to, and meditation is the key to creating that relationship with yourself.
Yeah.
Because then it will ultimately be your greatest guide.
Yeah. I'll tell you right now, one of the things that makes me different than other people is I go with my gut damn near every time.
Good.
I learned that years and years ago. And my realization into that was when I realized other people don't. Right? And I was like, what are you doing? They're like, well, I should have done this. I'm like, why do you always go against your first initial thought? You know, and then people give me their answer and we kind of go into it, whatever, right? And every now and again, it makes me insecure about it because I'm like, well, am I like just rogue here, just shooting guns? You know what I mean?
You're not.
No, I'm not.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. Every time I conclude out of it, I'm like, no, look at what you built. Look at what you did. Look at the relationships that you have. And it's like, yeah, the proof's in the pudding, you know? That's another thing too, is like take some honest self-reflection, guys. If your freaking relationship with your wife is terrible, it's you.
It is.
Right?
It is. We love to point the finger, right?
Yeah.
You know, the whole, they're a narcissist, they're this, they're that, blah, like these words just get created and then they just spin out of control. And it's
all
just,
that does is depress the person saying it.
Yeah.
Because every time you take your responsibility and try and kick it to someone else, which is impossible to do, right? You get depressed.
And you become a prisoner.
Yeah.
To that, you know what I mean? Like if they're controlling, if they're the problem and they're controlling you, you're a prisoner to them.
Yeah.
You're giving away that ability to be.
Yep. 100%.
Dude, I love it. This has been a great conversation. Really appreciate you coming on. I knew it would be a good one.
I'm glad I delivered something.
And then anything you want to like pitch, say, what are you up to? People can find you.
Jeez, you know, if you'd like to interact with me, the best way to do it is just go to my Instagram, right? It's President McCormack. It's McCormack with an A, not McCormack. We're not the Spice family, unfortunately.
Unfortunately. You'd have pepper money.
I'd be a mess. Yeah. Salt, pepper money. You know, other than that, I mean, if you want to listen to my podcast, great, go listen to it, right? It's the President McCormack podcast. If you enjoy it, great. My company sell athletic equipment and sports flooring. So if you want to put something in your home and that works in your world and you want to come do business with me, hit me up on Instagram. But no, I'm just happy to be on your podcast, dude.
Awesome.
I love hanging out with my friends and, you know, I hope that someone finds this conversation helpful.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.